All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Blast TV Austin Major. I'm here for our first interview of Stage 2 with none other than Swisher on our media day. So, welcome to the Major, Swisher. When did you arrive, and how's it been going so far?
Thank you, Jeff. I got in around 10 p.m. last night, kind of had a later flight. So, kind of just set up PC, felt the monitors out, because that was kind of the biggest concern is the monitors. Felt it out a little bit, and then went to bed for a bright and early media day.
And with you now having arrived at the Major, we finally have another NA team in the mix. What are your team's overall expectations for this Major?
Obviously, we're wanting to go as far as we can. We had a really good practice session for like this last 3 weeks or so after Astana. Coming into this, we've had really good practice. Coming back here, honestly, we had better practice here in the U.S. for like this last week and a half than in Europe, I'd say, just because a lot of European teams, Tier 1 teams, stayed here for the major. So we've had really good scrims. We're pretty confident coming in.
M80's kind of arrived as reinforcements after what has been a rough, major so far for our NA teams. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch any of the games at all, but Complexity were unfortunately, eliminated, and now Wildcard and NRG are fighting for survival today in round 5 of Stage 1. As one of their sort of colleagues, did you expect at all for these NA teams to suffer, to struggle as much in Stage 1 as they have? What is your kind of reaction to how NA's been doing at the major so far?
I think the complexity struggle was a little bit more expected because they're missing Halzerk. I saw them going through in the 3-1, 3-2 teams, but it sucks to see them go out so early. I think kind of wildcard is a little bit I think, expected too, as there's been some rumors of potential roster changes with that team. So I think on a personal level, it's kind of like expected for some of these teams to struggle. And then NRG, I mean, they've been looking pretty good for the most part, but they don't have a lot of European practice, so I think that could affect them in like the long term, and especially when it gets down to the best of threes and such, because they looked pretty good in the best of ones, but they struggled yesterday against OG, but OG looks good.
Now, the big story here, of course, for you is this is your first major, finally, after so many years of trying, with Bad News Bears, with M80, with all these teams coming so far, and then, being faced with, really upsets and lost moments. I remember at the RMR in Monterey, going out by a handful of rounds. So how does it feel to kind of finally secure your first major?
It feels great. I kind of wish we did have the qualification actually at like the RMR tournaments. I think that feeling is like unknown to a lot of people, but it's so great to experience, because like when we qualified to the major this time, it's like we were sitting at home going like, the VRS updated, we qualified, nice, woohoo. Like there's no sudden like urge of emotion, like when you actually win that qualification game that we saw in like Shanghai and things like that. So I wish that was kind of a thing, but it's still great to finally make it after being in Monterey 1 round away, and then in Shanghai having the same record as teams that qualified, but just the Buchholz score being too low.
I did want to pick your brain on that a little bit. You did, to a degree, answer my question. I think every player from the previous generation has a moment, memory of a moment where I qualified to the major. I won the RMR, I won the offline qualifier, or the minors. But for M80, you guys qualified via spreadsheet essentially. What was it like? Were you guys all just sitting around one computer, hitting F5 over and over again, or did it kind of take away from the experience of making the major at all?
I mean, we were definitely still watching, because when we passed wildcard, we knew that we were going to be above them no matter what. I remember I messaged Note on HLTV and was like, how accurate is HLTV's actual rankings in comparison? And then he's like, it's pretty accurate, probably like 99% accurate. I'm like, okay, that's good to know. And then every game we were watching Complexity play and win all of these games at that Qatar tournament, the qualifier for that. So we're like, oh my God, they might pass us. They might pass us. Every day we're like, oh my God, they won again. They won again. And then finally they just stopped gaining points from winning all their games, and we're like, did we win? I don't know. But it doesn't have the same feeling as actually qualifying through a big game like on land together.
Yeah, 100%. But you did, gather up those points from what I think was a pretty decent, season. Unfortunately, your main, I don't know, rival or upsetter was the fact that I think every event you've been in for the last like 3 months, you've been eliminated by G2. What do you make of your season so far, especially the last 3 months? With some wins, but otherwise, maybe not, beating any top teams.
I feel we're definitely we're happy with so far, like the progress at least. We feel like we should definitely be pushing farther into some of these tournaments. Like EPL was a pretty big letdown for us. We felt like we really just needed to make that second stage, or that next stage in EPL. Astana was kind of a little bit of a letdown as well. just didn't really push too deep. And then what was after that? Blast. Finally beating Furia for our first time was a good feeling, and then losing the G2 again. That one sucked again, but it's kind of good and bad a little bit. On a personal note, I feel like I'm not playing as well as I want to be. I've been putting in a lot of work to try to improve and contribute more.
And then final question for you. We don't know the stage 2, matchups yet, but who are you looking to face in your opening best of 1? Who would be this kind of dream team to face tomorrow in best of 1s?
We would like to honestly play like either a Legacy or Wildcard. Wildcard because they're like probably our biggest competitor inside of NA at least, and Legacy because it kind of goes back to them beating us in Monterey when they knocked us out of that tournament. So we kind of want that revenge.
All right, that's Swisher from M80. We'll see them in action as they step into stage 2 of the major. Thank you so much for your time.